60 Minutes Rewind.
It's always been a dream of mankind to live forever. Since the start of the 20th century, we have increased life expectancy in this country by a remarkable 30 years, from just 49 in 1900 to almost 79 today. And more of us are making it into that group we all hope and kind of dread joining, the over 90 crowd. Affectionately dubbed the oldest old, men and women above the age of 90 are now the fastest growing segment of the U.S. population. Yet very little is known about the oldest old, since until recently there were so few of them. So what determines which of us will make it past age 90? What kind of shape we'll be in if we do? And what can we do to up our odds? Finding out is the goal of a groundbreaking research study known as 90 Plus.
I was born on April 21st, 1914.
My birthday is February 7th, 1918. I was born on August 25th, 1920, and I'm 93 plus.
June 15, 1918, and it was, I'm sure, a lovely day.
Do you feel 95? What age do you
feel about 52. Not really.
What they have in common, other than having lived a combined total of almost 400 years, is that decades ago they all lived in a retirement community called Leisure World, 45 miles south of Los Angeles.
Hi there, and welcome to Leisure World, a new way of life designed for alert and active people 52 years or older who want to get the most out of life.
Today, it's still a retirement community, and they're still getting the most out of life, though it's no longer called Leisure World. It's now its own city, Laguna Woods.
They didn't like the word leisure world. They consider themselves active.
active world?
Active world.
Dr. Claudia Kawas spends a lot of time in Laguna Woods these days. She's a neurologist and professor at nearby UC Irvine, who discovered the research equivalent of gold here. Information gathered from thousands of Leisure World residents back in 1981, page after page of data about their diet, exercise, vitamins, and activities.
14,000 people
14,000.
answered this questionnaire in 1981. Many of them, if they were still alive, would now be over the age of 90.
She saw a rare opportunity to study what worked and what didn't.
So did you try to find them?
We went after all 14,000. And you're how old now? I'll be 103 months. We're going to have a party. Good.
Jane Whistler
I love a party.
is one of the more than 1,600 men and women they found and enrolled as subjects in the 90 Plus study. They are checked from top to bottom every 6 months.
Big smile?
Their facial muscles,
Excellent.
reflexes, balance,
3, 4, 5.
how they walk, how fast they can stand up and sit down,
Fantastic.
and most importantly, how their minds are working.
I'm going to say and show you 3 words for you to remember. Shirt, brown, honesty.
Shirt, brown, honest.
Perfect. Now please spell world.
They are given an hour-long battery of cognitive and memory tests.
Good. Now spell world backwards.
DLROW.
Asked to connect letters and numbers
There you go.
and to remember.
All right. What 3 words did I ask you to remember earlier?
Brown, shirt,
You want a little hint?
yeah.
Okay. Was that word honesty, charity, or
Honesty.
modesty? Yes.
When it's time for your exams in the 90 Plus study, do you look forward to it, or
Sure.
do you ever say, oh, they're going to find something, or I'm not going to be able to do as well as I did last time?
Oh yeah, I think that. Sure.
I do.
But that doesn't stop me. I think it's fun.
Shirt, brown, honesty.
We were struck by what great shape many of the study participants are in.
Excellent. 13 seconds.
like Lou Torado, a World War II B-17 gunner who was shot down near Berlin and spent 8 months as a German POW. And Sid Shiro, another World War II veteran who came to talk to us despite having suffered a stroke just a few weeks earlier that slurred his speech.
I am 92 years old and going strong, and I hope to last a long time.
But of course, not everyone is so lucky. When participants like Louise Bigelow, age 97, are too frail to come in for testing, the testers go to them.
An orange and a banana are alike because they're both yellow.
Louise remembers events from long ago, like when her bridal veil caught fire a few minutes after this photo was taken.
It went right into the flames of the candles. So I always had a lot of excitement all the time. And that was the beginning.
You're not going to forget that, ever.
No.
But when it comes to recent memories and thinking skills, she struggles more and more.
And in what way are laughing and crying alike?
I don't know.
No.
Brown, honesty, and shirt.
The testers go to 95-year-old Ruthie Stahl's home too. They go not because she can't come to them. She just doesn't have time.
I'm in my car more than I'm in the house, I think, because I do so many things.
What do you do?
I am flying all over the place.
Flying, as in speed walking, 3 miles almost every day.
On Sunday, it's only 2 miles.
Well, whatever your secrets are, by being in the study, we're going to try to find them out.
So you can go back and look at their medical history.
Everybody in the study filled out that questionnaire in the early 1980s.
And comparing that data to how it's all turned out has yielded a slew of published findings about behaviors associated with living longer. So what's the verdict? No surprise, smokers died earlier than non-smokers. And what about exercise?
People who exercised definitely lived longer than people who didn't exercise. A little as 15 minutes a day on average made a difference. 45 was the best. Even 3 hours didn't beat 45
Oh,
minutes a
wow,
day.
that's interesting.
And it didn't all have to be at once. It could be, for example, 15 minutes of walking and then later in the day, gardening or something. And it also didn't have to be very intense exercise.
And non-physical activities, book clubs, socializing with friends, board games, all good.
For every hour you spent doing activities in 1981, you increased your longevity. And the benefit of those things never leveled off.
The subjects we spoke to had definitely been active, but they didn't strike us as having lived their lives worrying about their health.
But I'm not a big vitamin person.
Have you watched over the years what you ate?
Not really.
Dessert?
Sure, I love dessert. I always had a glass of wine before dinner, and now I still do, but I can't quite finish it.
What about alcohol?
Sure, I love wine.
Do you take vitamins?
Yes, a lot of.
So which vitamins helped? Antioxidants?
Okay, vitamin E. We were sitting at the edge of our chairs. Did it make a difference?
It was my favorite, but
No.
people who took vitamin E didn't live any longer than people who didn't take vitamin E.
They also looked at vitamin A, C, and calcium.
The short answer is none of them made a difference
None of them made a difference to living
in terms
long.
of how long you live.
What about alcohol?
Alcohol made a difference.
But it may not be what you think.
Moderate alcohol was associated with living longer than individuals who did not consume
Wait a
alcohol.
Moderate alcohol, you live longer?
Yes.
Up to 2 drinks a day led to a 10 to 15% reduced risk of death compared to non-drinkers.
Isn't that exciting?
And any kind of alcohol seemed to do the trick.
A lot of people like to say it's only red wine.
Yeah.
In our hands, it didn't seem to matter.
Martini's just as good.
Yeah.
And there's good news for coffee drinkers. Caffeine intake equivalent to 1 to 3 cups of coffee a day was better than more or none. And if you're concerned about those bulging waistlines, listen to this.
It Turns out that the best thing to do as you age is to at least maintain or even gain weight.
Gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
So being a little overweight is good?
Being obese is never good.
And being overweight as a young person wasn't good either. But late in life, they found people who were overweight or average weight both outlived people who were underweight.
It's not good to be skinny when you're old.
But living a long time, even if we don't have to watch our waistlines, isn't the only thing most of us care about. We want to be all there to enjoy it. And it's in the areas of Alzheimer's and dementia that the 90 Plus study is generating some of its most provocative and surprising findings. We are a nation getting older. By the middle of the century, the number of Americans aged 90 and above is projected to quadruple. While that's good news for those of us who want to stick around, it also means more time literally to start to lose our minds. Dementia, including that most dreaded form, Alzheimer's disease, is a looming threat and a primary focus of the 90 Plus study. Researchers can compare what they saw in life to the secrets buried deep within. And the picture isn't always matching up, bringing new discoveries and new questions about what may actually be causing dementia in the oldest old and what we may be able to do about it.
You know, I think that it was common belief that if you got to 90 and you didn't have dementia or Alzheimer's, that you weren't going to get it.
Unfortunately, no. I really expected to find that. But in our study, that's not what happened.
It's not true.
No.
Oh, 62.
It turns out the risk of developing dementia doubles every 5 years, starting at the age of 65, and it keeps right on doubling. And given the growth in numbers of the oldest old by mid-century,
We are going to have more people with dementia over the age of 90 than we currently have at all ages put together.
We're not even thinking about it.
We should be.
Where do I start?
as charming and engaging as all the 90-plussers we met were, one who we were particularly moved by was 96-year-old Ted Rosenbaum, a former American history teacher who's been married for 63 years.
You still look like this already.
I was very lucky. So now at this stage of the game, if it's petering out, just reminiscing about our past is a source of incalculable joy.
An orange and a banana are alike because they're both
Fruits.
exactly.
Ted did well on parts of the 90-plus exam, like repeating long strings of numbers backwards.
6, 1, 8, 4, 3.
3, 4, 8, 1, 6.
But when it came time to remember the 3 words she had told him just 40 seconds earlier,
3 words.
Yeah.
Give me a hint.
he was lost.
3 words.
And that wasn't his only problem.
What is today's date?
Today's date? Today's date.
Does he have dementia at this point?
Yes, Ted has dementia. You know, unfortunately, there's no blood test, there's no x-ray. It's an examiner finding out that an individual has problems in 2 or more of the main things the brain does for them. So that's where he is.
When subjects in the study donate their brains, they come here to neuropathologist Dr. Ronald Kim. He showed us one of the things he always looks for, the plaques and tangles in the brain that are the telltale signs of Alzheimer's disease.
It forms all of these plaques.
All these brown spots
Yes,
are plaques.
plaques, that's correct. And in an individual like this, I would expect the patient to be demented.
Read newspapers every day?
Yes, we read them in the evening.
Lauren Bigelow spent 5 years in the study, and while Dr. Kim studies his brain, the rest of the 90-plus team independently reviews years of his test results and videos to assess assess whether he had developed dementia, and if so, from what. While early on his scores were strong,
Who is our president?
Obama.
over the years there was a gradual but unmistakable decline. He'd pick up a newspaper he had just finished, use the TV remote to try and make a phone call.
Do you know who is the president?
I want to say Herbert Hoover.
Okay.
I can't think of it.
The consensus here was likely Alzheimer's, which presumes a brain with plaques and tangles.
Are we ready to hear the truth?
Only then do they open up Dr. Kim's report.
Plaques, 0, so no plaques.
Wow.
No cortical tangles anywhere.
Pretty amazing.
What's amazing is they're finding that 40% of the time in people over 90, what doctors would think is Alzheimer's isn't. In Laurie Bigelow's brain, Dr. Kim found something else. Something the 90-plus study is finding quite a bit. Evidence of tiny microscopic strokes called microinfarcts. His brain was full of them.
Here is a microinfarct. It's the whole, which is basically a tiny stroke.
So you've got all this tissue is missing.
If you find one, it suggests that you should probably look for others, and some patients may have hundreds or thousands of them.
These microscopic strokes are insidious because people don't even know they're having them.
They can be totally silent, and slowly but surely over time, you're picking off, you're disconnecting your cortex from the rest of the brain, and then you start to become demented. It can look just like Alzheimer's disease clinically.
Do you know anything we can do to prevent these mini strokes?
I wish I did, but I will soon, I hope.
Kewa suspects one thing that may cause them is low blood pressure, and she has some evidence. While none of the factors from the original Leisure World study, vitamins, alcohol, caffeine, even exercise, seem to lower people's risk of getting dementia, the 90-plus study discovered that high blood pressure did.
If you have high blood pressure, it looks like your risk of dementia is lower
Lower.
than if you don't have high blood pressure.
High blood pressure, lower risk of dementia.
In a 90-year-old.
High blood pressure is still dangerous if you're younger. Yet another reason, she says, it's so important to study the oldest old.
Most of what we know, we study in much younger individuals, in 50, 60, maybe 70-year-olds. And then we just kind of assume that the same thing should happen in older people.
And you're saying we shouldn't?
I think we shouldn't.
Take this next counterintuitive finding, this time in the 90-plus subjects who have no dementia.
We're finding out that if you die without dementia in this age group, about half the time you still have plaques and tangles in your head.
No. So you can exhibit Alzheimer's and not have plaques and tangles half the time, and the reverse?
Both directions.
You're fine and you do have plaques and tangles? So what do you make of that?
I mean, one possibility is that plaques and tangles have nothing to do with it. But it might be that plaques and tangles are very, very important, but just a 90-year-old who has them and didn't develop thinking problems has some way of getting around them that maybe all the rest of us would like to know.
So now they're looking at people with no signs of dementia, like Ruthie Stahl, Lou Torado, Sid Shiro, and Jane Whistler, to see if they have plaques and tangles, but are not affected by them. There's a new type of PET scan that for the first time makes it possible to find plaques during life.
Let me help you with that.
So the 90-plus study is engaged in the delicate task of putting 99-year-olds like Jane Whistler into scanners. Sid Shiro at 92 popped right in.
Jane and Sid both have very, very, very good thinking, as you saw.
Yes, definitely.
And it turns out that one of their scans is positive and one is negative.
She showed them to us, one on top of the other. Yellow and red indicate the presence of amyloid plaque.
This is Miss Whistler and this is Mr. Shiro.
Well,
Sid
I'm
Shiro?
surprised, having talked to him, that I'm seeing yellow and red here. Kind of stunning.
Oh, Mr. Shiro!
Dr. Kewa.
So what does that mean for Sid? The positive scan means statistically he's at greater risk of cognitive decline. But Dr. Kewa says the fact that he's doing so well in spite of the plaque in his brain and his stroke means he may have that something protective and special that could help the rest of us. She says they'll be keeping a close watch on him.
If it's unclear that the pathology hooks up with what you're seeing, what does that mean in your mind?
I think we're looking for too simple an answer. I think we want one thing to explain Alzheimer's. Look at something different, like what makes skin wrinkle? Well, I mean, getting older makes skin wrinkle. Being in the sun too much makes skin wrinkle. Not taking care of your diet. And you put all those together and they all contribute. And I think it might turn out to be the same for our thinking, especially in late life.
The 90+ study has just gotten another 5-year round of NIH funding to delve deeper into risk factors for specific types of dementia, like those microinfarcts, and to search for genes that may be protective in their continuing search for the secrets of the oldest old.
I really believe that when we learn things from the 90-year-olds, they're going to be helping the 60 and 70-year-olds, not just how to become 90-year-olds, but how to do it with style and as good a function as possible.
Well, obviously you've already started that by telling us that we should have some wine and we should have some coffee.
And socialize, and exercise.
And gain weight.
And that's my favorite.
My favorite too, absolutely.